Both the Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks are both off to cold starts in 2024. So is it fair to say the World Series hangover is real?
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to the always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist and graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. On today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, we'll talk about that World Series hangover for both the D-backs and Rangers, whether both of those teams are good team-building models for other franchises, and we'll talk about Brandon Pfaadt's start on Tuesday because we got ourselves a Pfaadt Tuesday. But before we get into any of that, thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms. So please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube. So please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. We're trying to hit 2,000 subs by the All-Star break. So once again, please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. Now I want to talk about World Series hangovers because both the Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks, both of those teams are not off to the hottest starts right now in 2024. And actually, if you look at the standings as we record May 27th on a Monday, D-backs with the off day, they are currently a game and a half out of the wild card spot on the outside looking in of the postseason. Rangers are also a few games back of a wild card spot and a division spot. So if the season ended today, the two teams that were in the World Series last year wouldn't make it to the postseason in 2024. So I want to discuss the World Series hangover, and is it affecting both of these teams? Because it's a theory that you see floated around every time a team goes to the big game, right? The very next season, we always ask the question, is the team going to reach the same levels that they reached the season prior? Are they going to reach the same expectations? And if they don't, is it because of the quote unquote championship hangover that you see with teams? Because after a championship, right, you're exerting so much energy and you're playing longer than anyone else. There are so many factors as to why a team may not come back the next season and perform the same. Is it because they played more games than anybody else? Is it because they overly exerted all the juice that they had just a few months ago and they need more than just a season to recover from the mental and emotional exhaustion that they just had? I don't know what the variables are that lead to the World Series hangover, but there are two big reasons why I believe the Texas Rangers and the D-backs are not playing well this year, and you could attribute it to the World Series hangover if you want to. The first big reason that both teams have struggled this year is because of injuries, and maybe that's a factor due to the World Series, or maybe it's not. You could say maybe because they played more games deeper into the season, it affected the wear and tear on those guys entering the next season, which is right now 2024. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not, but you can't deny injuries have played a major part in both of those teams. Of course, with the D-backs, Merrill Kelly, Alec Thomas, Erod, Geraldo Perdomo, Zach Gallen has missed time. You look at the Texas Rangers, they've been down a Wyatt Langford. Evan Carter has missed time. Max Scherzer, DeGrom, Evaldi, John Gray. Like, both of those teams have dealt with so many injuries already in 2024. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why both of the teams have not reached their expectations so far this season. Now, are there injuries because of the fact that they played in the World Series last year, more games than anyone, more mileage on their bodies than any other team in baseball? Maybe, maybe not, but I would say injuries are one of the two are one of the two biggest reasons as to why both of those teams have been struggling in 2024. The other big reason, and again, I don't know if you could attribute this to the World Series hangover, but you look at the stars of both teams, and they're just not playing well enough. You're not getting enough contributions from your best players if you're the Texas Rangers and you're the Arizona Diamondbacks. Even after Ketel Marte's 21 game hitting streak, his slash line right now is still 275, 322, 493. Very good, but it's not like superstar level considering the hitting streak he had. And that's the best D-backs player. Corbin Carroll has been terrible this season. Same with Gabriel Moreno and Lourdes Gurriel, Eugenio Suarez. Zach Gallen has been good. He has not been great this year. Jordan Montgomery, we need more from him. So you look at the D-backs, their stars, their best players have not done enough. And the same with the Texas Rangers. Corey Seager, below 800 OPS. Marcus Semien, below 800 OPS. Adolis Garcia, below 800 OPS. Both teams have their stars not playing at their best. And maybe you could attribute that to the World Series hangover. But again, I just don't know. Last year, the D-backs, when we looked at their strengths, it was speed and it was clutch hitting, right? This year, what have they not been doing? They have not been aggressive on the base paths. They've actually been a super low IQ team on the base paths, getting picked off, getting thrown out, not, taking first or third, not being able to score the runner from third in easy run scoring situations. Like the D-backs have been so bad on the base paths this year. They have also not been good in clutch hitting. How many times have we discussed after the seventh inning, this D-backs team just stops hitting the ball and they struggle offensively? Well, the Texas Rangers, just like the D-backs, are not playing to their strengths last year. The Rangers' strength last year was their elite offense. They were number one in runs, average, OPS. The Rangers were absolutely hitting the cover off the ball last year. But so far in 2024, they're middle of the pack in terms of a lot of their offensive numbers. And so I want to know if all the struggles that we've seen with the Rangers and D-backs this season, is it just attributed to the fact that they were in the World Series last year? Or is it, just bad luck that they run into in 2024? I don't really know, but I can at least say both of those teams have not lived up to the expectations that we've had for them this year. The D-backs are coming off an offseason where we all thought they improved, all thought they upgraded their rotation and third base and their lineup. And so we thought they were going to be way better in 2024. Same with the Texas Rangers. We thought they were going to get internal development, a full year of Evan Carter, a full year of Wyatt Langford. And instead, both of the teams have really struggled. And to be honest, it's hard to find examples in recent MLB history where both teams went to the World Series and then missed the postseason the very next year. There are examples of one team making it to the World Series and then missing the next year. But for both World Series to miss the very next postseason, not a lot of examples to find. I think the last two teams to do it were the 2006 White Sox and Houston Astros. They both went to the World Series in 2005 and then both missed the postseason in 2006. I think the D-backs and Rangers, assuming they both missed the postseason, would be the first pair of World Series teams to do that since 2006. I don't think it's going to happen. I think at least one of those teams will make it to the postseason. But right now, they're both not playing well. You could attribute it to World Series hangover if you want to. But at the end of the day, injuries have played a major factor, and their stars are just not playing well enough right now. Now, on the flip side, we'll talk about something a little bit more positive and discuss if the Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks are actually good models for team building in Major League Baseball. You know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good? That's what I get with Stitch Fix. Stitch Fix You get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on trend favorites that will work for you. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want, no subscription required. And they send just five just for me pieces plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. I keep what works and send back the rest. My stylist always sends just right pieces and the fits are on point. It's like they have style ESP. I don't know how they do it, but they just get me every single time and they understand my style. And that's why I love Stitch Fix. And if you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Style that makes you feel good as you look good. Get started today at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $20 off your first fix. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $20 off. Stitchfix.com/MLB must redeem within 7 days of sign up. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. And let's discuss if the D-backs and Texas Rangers are good models for team building, because my answer to that question is actually yes. I know when you look at the 2024 season, it's hard to say yes to that question because the success has not been there for both Arizona and Texas. And you're going to start wondering if both of those teams were just 1-year fluke wonders, right? I don't think that's the case. I still think you could look at both of those teams based off what they did last season as potential guides for building your own contender if you're an opposing franchise. And I think both teams, what makes them interesting in this question is I think they both took different approaches, but of course ended up with the same result of being in the World Series. And for the D-backs, they took the approach of being more homegrown, right? They had to build a little bit more through the draft, get your Corbin Carrolls and your Alec Thomases and your Jake McCarthy's and this guy and that guy through the draft. And they also had to win on the margins, right? Trade for, well, not trade, but discover the Merrill Kellys and discover the Christian Walkers. And you know what? Find the Ryan Thompsons on the waiver wire. You look at the Texas Rangers, their philosophy to building a World Series contender after missing the postseason for quite a few years was to just spend a ton of money, right? They said to get back to contention, we're just going to go out there and open up our wallets and spend big. Come down, Corey Seager. Come down, Marcus Semien and John Gray and all these big time deals, the Nathan Eovaldi's. Both of those teams took different approaches, but both of them ended up with the same result of a World Series contender. But even though they took different approaches, I feel like both of them at least had the same philosophy in mind, which was don't be afraid of taking risks. Don't be afraid of taking big swings, because in the sport of team building, you need a little bit of luck. And both of these teams, I don't think were afraid to get a little bit zany when it comes to their team building. When I look at the D-backs, trading away like Dalton Varsho for Gabriel Moreno and Lord Gurriel was a huge risk at the time, because Varsho was the most accomplished outfielder that the D-backs had at the time. Yes, Corbin Carroll had the highest upside, but Varsho was at least a 25 home run, 15 stolen base guy with elite defense at the time of him being traded. Yes, you were getting back a elite catching prospect in Gabriel Moreno, but still, it was only a prospect. And then you were getting back a solid outfielder in Lourdes Gurriel, but he was a pending free agent at the time. So to trade a solid upside piece in Dalton Varsho for a question mark Moreno and a potential free agent in Lourdes Gurriel, that was a big risk for the D-backs. Trusting in Merrill Kelly's development, a guy from the KBO League who is 30 years old, to be your number 2 starter, yeah, that was a big risk by the D-backs. Not a lot of teams would have given Merrill Kelly the grace and the runway to develop into the pitcher that he is now, but the D-backs did that. The D-backs believing in a Christian Walker to be the first baseman of the future after Paul Goldschmidt, huge risk, but ended up working out big time. Trading trading Jazz Chisholm for Zach Gallen, the number one prospect in your organization, the number one pick in the draft, big risk by the D-backs. Taking a chance on Ryan Thompson off the waiver wire, who the D-backs have taken a lot of chances with dudes off the waiver wire who have not worked out. Ryan Thompson has been one of the best pickups by the D-backs over the last decade. He has been elite over the last 2 seasons. They look at the Texas Rangers. They took big risks spending money on the John Grays, the Evaldis, the Corey Seagers, the Marcus Simeons. They took risks trading for Jordan Montgomery and a Max Scherzer of the world. Now, not all risks work out, right? We know Jacob deGrom, giving him big money was a huge risk, and that seems to have bitten the Rangers in the butt. But you have to at least like both of those teams being unafraid in their approach to team building. You need luck when you're doing this. It's not cut and dry. It's not black and white. There is a lot of luck involved when it comes to team building. And I think the Rangers and D-backs did a great job of weighing risk versus the potential upside of whatever pieces that they were bringing in. And yes, it hasn't worked for them this year, but I still love everything that they did. I still love the D-backs approach in the offseason to go out there and add star talent to the rotation, upgrade your third base with a Eugenio Suarez, or at least you thought it was an upgrade at the time. Go out there and get 2 solid players to be your designated hitter. I thought that was very smart team building as well. The Texas Rangers, they thought they were going to get internal improvement from some of their best players in the Wyatt Langfords and the Evan Carters of the world. Maybe another year of Josh Young in your system. Maybe he could break out in year number 2 as well. I like the approach of both of these teams. Yes, it hasn't worked out in 2024, but both of these teams are also aggressive now, as we saw with the D-backs this past offseason, as we even saw with the D-backs in their regular season, cutting the Mad Bums of the world, getting rid of the Nick Ahmeds of the world. The Rangers last year trading for Max Scherzer near the trade deadline. Both of these teams were super aggressive last year in their approach, and they were not afraid to take risks. And I think that's what we need to see more teams doing going forward. You can't be afraid to take risks in your team building. You have to get a little bit crazy. Yes, sometimes you might swing and miss on a free agent. Yes, sometimes you might trade for a guy and the piece that you give up ends up turning into a Yordan Alvarez or something like that. But regardless, baseball is just one of those sports where it's so sporadic, it's so random at times, and that's why you just can't sit on your hands if you're an executive. You have to go out there. I think you have to make moves. That's why I think AJ Preller for the San Diego Padres is so interesting, because even if you don't agree with his approach, you can't deny he's aggressive and he loves to add talent to that roster. And that's what I really respect. So for the D-backs and Texas Rangers, yes, they haven't gotten the results this year, but I still love their approach. I still think both of those teams could be models for how you should build a World Series contender. Hey, if you plan on buying any tickets to an upcoming D-backs game, then the best place to do that is, of course, Game Time, because Game Time is the best place for last-minute tickets. Save up to 60% off when buying tickets for sports, concerts, comedy theater, and more. They have flash deals, which save you even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Zone deals save you even more when you choose a section and you let Game Time choose the seats. All-in pricing shows you the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. See the view from your seat before you even purchase your tickets, which is just an amazing feature. And they have the lowest price guarantee on Game Time. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if they don't have the lowest price on their app. That's why Game Time is the absolute best. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account or redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, all right, all right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. If you like the show, please follow me on Twitter at CareerTimes24 for the personal account. Follow Millard.Thomas123 on Instagram for the personal account, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks on both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. But now let's talk about Pfaadt Tuesday and Brandon Pfaadt and the D-backs as they take on the Texas Rangers in their next series, because the D-backs have only lost one Tuesday game all season. So very good chances of the D-backs starting off this series with one win. And if they do that, they will at least ensure that they split the series, because it's a small, short 2-game series against the Texas Rangers. And I will say, with Brandon Pfaadt on the mound Tuesday, I feel good about the D-backs at least splitting this upcoming series against the Texas Rangers. Pfaadt right now in his bag. He has been dominant recently for the D-backs. And I think this year he has really been incredible all year. He has had just 2 starts where he was awful. In back-to-back starts, he gave up 11 earned runs. Outside of those 2 starts, he's basically giving you a quality start every time he's out there. In 6 of his last 7 starts, he's given you a quality start. Brandon Pfaadt is pitching deep into games right now. He's giving you length if you're the bullpen. He's garnering a whole lot of strikeouts as well. Brandon Pfaadt is coming into his own this season. If you look at his stats from the last 2 games, Brandon Pfaadt, electric, right? When you go back and watch the tape from what he did in his last 2 starts. In his last 2 games, that fastball sweeper, which we know is his go-to combo, he threw it 130 times in the last 2 starts. He only gave up 3 hits total on those 130 pitches while racking up 12 strikeouts at the same time. He's turning into a 2-pitch guy, which is fine. He throws it 2/3 of the time, and those 2 pitches have been almost unhittable this season, especially when he's been at his best. Those 2 pitches have been electric. The sweeper with the movement, the fastball with the precision. Brandon Pfaadt is having himself a breakout season. And to be honest, I think he's someone that we should keep an eye on as the season progresses as a potential Cy Young candidate. Now, do I think he's going to win it? No, I think guys like Shota and Manga are leaps and bounds ahead of Brandon Pfaadt with the starts of the season they've had. Ranger Suarez, he's been really good as well. I think the field right now for the National League Cy Young is so strong. Even a guy like Zach Gallen is ahead of Brandon Pfaadt. But when you look at the game log for Pfaadt, when you see how many times he's pitched deep into a ball game, how many quality starts he already has on the season, he's just someone to monitor. If he can keep this pace up of pitching deep, not giving up earned runs, and getting a lot of strikeouts, that's usually a pretty good big 3 of filling out a resume for the Cy Young Award. So want to continue to watch Brandon Pfaadt the rest of the season. Pfaadt is someone that did pitch against the Texas Rangers last year in the playoffs. He did have a postseason start against the Rangers last year in the World Series. And I was actually at that game that Brandon Pfaadt started against the Rangers, and he was fine in that game. Was he elite? Was he as good as he was, maybe against the Philadelphia Phillies? Probably not, but he still went 5.1 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, and kept the D-backs in the game. It was the D-backs who only scored 1 run in that game. D-backs pitching staff only gave up 3 runs total, all courtesy of Brandon Pfaadt. So Pfaadt did his job. The bullpen did their job in game number 3. It was the D-backs offense who did not show up in that game 3 of the World Series. And that's not what I want to happen in this series, because I feel like Brandon Pfaadt is going to show up on Tuesday, have himself a great start. And then we're going to look at the offense and be like, where are you at? Because that's the question we've been asking the offense the last few weeks. Where are you? Where are you top of the lineup? Then this past weekend series against the Miami Marlins, the 1-through hitters for the D-backs had 1 hit, and it was a Corbin Carroll triple in that finale. Ketel Marte, he needs another hitting streak going, because as we said, despite being the best player for the D-backs all season, his numbers aren't even that eye-popping. Corbin Carroll, we know he sucked. Lourdes Gurriel, we know he has sucked this season. Same with Eugenio Suarez. We need someone from that trio to get going. A Gabriel Moreno, who is 5 for his last 28. We would love for him to get going as well. This D-backs offense has been struggling so much with Brandon Pfaadt going on Tuesday. Please give him some run support, because for him to get into that Cy Young Award race, he's going to need a few more wins on his resume. And the Texas Rangers are a team that is not playing their best baseball right now. Now, again, the Miami Marlins weren't playing their best baseball, so a good opportunity for the D-backs there. But like as we always say on every podcast now, as they enter a new series, good opportunity for the D-backs to build some momentum and potentially turn their season around. Rangers really struggling the last 3 weeks. But again, the Marlins were struggling, and it meant nothing to the D-backs in that series. So can't really say the D-backs are going to play well against the Texas Rangers, just because the Rangers have been struggling over the last few weeks as well. But in the end, both of these teams right now struggling coming off the World Series. Both of these teams going through a little bit of a World Series hangover right now. Both teams want this to potentially be the series that turns their season around. And even if both teams sweep this, this little mini series, I don't think either fan base would be like, all right, now our season starts. Now we're turning it around. I think both franchises would feel like you need a larger sample size than just a 2-game mini sweep. But it's better to start somewhere than nowhere. So hopefully the D-backs take care of business as they face the Texas Rangers on Tuesday night. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight, and we'll be talking after the D-backs take game 1 from the Rangers. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.